Hello, everybody. Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish. Yup, it's time for some more shenanigans specifically, and I'm so excited for this one. Been working over a year on this pattern based on some shortages in the feather world, maybe not finding the right colors I'm looking for in the feather world. I don't really want to go dye some feathers. So what do? I grab materials that are available and come up with the Shaggy Leggy Bunny Boi. Let's go. All right, let's start this fly off with an 11 millimeter Spawn articulated shank. And depending on what you're trying to accomplish, what species you're trying to chase, all that good stuff, you can start this with a bigger shank, smaller shank. My recommendation is when you're first starting to tie these types of flies, go ahead and start with a bigger shank. Make it easy on yourself, learn the techniques, and then size down as your comfort level grows. So again, this fly, this design, if you will, comes from a shortage of feathers, or maybe not even being able to find the right color of soft hackle or hen saddle. And eventually you just go, man, there's got to be a different way to still accomplish the same fly, accomplish the same species of fish on the fly without necessarily using the feathers. So here we go. This is how we tie the Shaggy Leggy Bunny Boi. And let's get it started with the tail. We've got a Spawn Polliwog tail in pink. As you see, the thread I've started here is also pink, and this is 6/0. And so any 6/0, 140, any of that's going to be just peachy. All right, so about half a tail. I'm not going to worry about saving that other half. Just get that really secured on there. And then this is going to be how the rest of this fly goes as we build off of this platform. So I'm going to get a loop tied. This is a thread loop. I'm going to cinch that with that little knot so that nothing comes loose. So at this point, this is where you typically fill in your loop. However, we've got some stuff going on here aside from that. So keep in mind, this is the Shaggy Leggy Bunny Boi. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Leggy Boi. We have tied one on camera here, albeit a little bit outrageous with the confetti style, but same premise. We are going to add legs into each shank right in the very middle. So I want these legs coming out the sides of these shanks as we go. So let me just veil over two legs. I'll bring that on top. And so this is where like the shank design comes in, right? Use these little spots here, if you will, as indicators or cheats. So I'm just going to go right in front of that shank. I've got plenty of room there between the end of the arm and the eye. So what I'm looking for here, I want to have 3 wraps of material, especially on these shorter shanks. So I want 1 wrap behind and then 2 wraps in front of my legs. As we get into the bigger shanks, as we go up, then that'll change to 2 in front, 2 behind. And of course, if you go really big, it would change yet again. But for what we're doing, this is going to be exactly what we need. All right, so now let's get back to that loop that we started with. As you see, keep in mind those legs are in front of the loop. So first thing we're going to do, and this will be the shaggy part of I'm going to say it again, probably 20 more times, Shaggy Leggy Bunny Boi. It's fun to say. So we have some shaggy dub in hot pink. That's going into the loop first. Let me see if I can turn this somewhat, keep those legs out of the way. Tying on camera is definitely not the same as tying for fun on your home desk, of course, but we will try to make this as visually pleasing for you as possible. So now I've got some two-tone rabbit, and this is purple, hot pink. And so what we're going to do is throw that into the loop as well. So now I've got shaggy dub and a small amount of rabbit. Keep in mind, 11 millimeter shank. How long is my rabbit strip? It's going to be right around 3/4 of an inch. So that's not exact, nor does it mean it's exactly what you have to use, but boy, it helps to have a starting point. So now I've got, again, shaggy dub and then that little bit of rabbit in there, but I need to trim out the leather from my rabbit. So carefully, I'm just going to get my scissor involved. By all means, this is where you could use clamps. get that fur ready and then deliver it to the loop with a clamp. All that's great. We're just going to go this way. So spin this up. I don't know if you're going to be able to catch any of this spinning on camera. Hopefully it's all right. And if there's a key to this, it's not overdoing the shaggy dub, right? Rabbit condenses. You see there's no leather in here. So I can get that wet, really, cram a bunch of it down, all that good stuff. I cannot do that with shaggy dub. So when you take those wraps of shaggy dub, if you get a wrap on top of itself, it's really going to bulk up very quickly. And sometimes that's great. Most of the time it's not. All right, so for this first wrap, again, we talked about 1 wrap behind, 2 wraps in front. I'm looking at that shaggy dub to fill up the space behind the legs. And why? Because this is going to act as my prop. So when you look at a Game Changer profile, it has a taper, of course, but the prop behind the feathers is what maintains that profile. So this time, shaggy dub is going to be our prop. So this is a weird move, I know, but I can grab those legs with my pinky, come behind, and then I'm going to switch hands about 82 times, come on this side, which is my side, grab those legs. Now I'm behind for a full wrap, but you see those legs are still going back. I haven't interfered with anything. All that material comes back, and then we just go in front of the legs now. And so here's our second wrap and our third wrap upcoming. So now there's just a little bit of fur left, but you see now we get our fingers wet. We stroke all of that back a little bit. It's going to stay because it's rabbit. It's soft. It wants to play like that. Take full advantage. I don't know about you. I'm not missing the feather right now. Some of you might be going, man, I just love the way the feathers move. I'm going to ask you to do me and yourself a favor. Accept this challenge. Tie one of these flies. Put it in the water. And then come back and tell me, you know what? You're full of it, Pete. Just doesn't work. Because guess what? I've been fishing this fly for a little over a year. And I will tell you right now, you're not going to come back and tell me that. You're just going to go, Pete, can I get some more rabbit? Can I get some weird colored legs? And of course the answer is to that is absolutely. Visit spawn.com. Spawn Fly Fish has everything you need. Tell me that's not sexy. And I know a lot of you going, Pete, it's a fly. It's not sexy. Oh yeah, that's sexy. Salmon, steelhead, largemouth, smallmouth. Clip those legs just about the same length as the tail. Very quickly because we have a lot to do here. One more time, dip my fingers in that water. Completely get all that goodness out of my way. And very quickly here, let's get a kiss of head cement on those thread wraps. What do you think? If you can handle this, you can tie this fly. So if it might not just be a feather issue. Maybe you're just a little bit cautious to tie a Game Changer, whatever it might be. We're going to eliminate all those excuses. After this, no reason you can't just get some stuff out and tie an amazingly articulated, well-profiled fly. Great. So there's our 11mm shank. As of course, we got to go up. So I'm going to connect my shank first. Excuse me, my fingers are in the way there. Ba-bum. So now I've got the 12mm. So we're going to go 11, 12, 13. And so pop this guy out. Next one in. Now, as far as what jaw I like, I don't tie these shanks in this jaw. Typically, this is strictly for the camera. I like this jaw for tying with the shanks. Gives me that little gap behind. Oh well, here we are. All right, let's get this arm tied down on a 12mm shank. Try not to move the vise on you too much. So the difficulty of that first shank is the thickness of that polliwog tail. So what happens now is we get into a shank without the bulk in the center, but the beauty is that was our first shank, our smallest shank. So everything going forward is going to be just a touch longer, larger, a little bit more material. And so this will all have the proper taper and profile that we're looking for. So again, close off that loop with a good knot. And we are ready to start on our second shank here. So again, I'm just putting in my dub twister to keep that out of the way for now, and time for more legs. So you can see this is sort of a wash, rinse, repeat sort of fly, which most of our large articulated streamers to some degree end up being that in that type of wheelhouse. All right, so again, just going to veil over the thread 2 legs. I'm going to bring those legs up to the shank, 1 wrap. All right, so now 2 legs onto your side, and again, this is plenty of room for that first wrap, but not so much that it's going to leave a gap. And there we've got the legs tied in. Not too crazy. Once you get used to it, again, it's a different deal by all means. But once you're comfy with tying loops and then throwing weird materials in there, I mean, the sky's the limit for you on this type of a pattern. All right, going in for some more of that shaggy dub goodness. And if you guys have watched me tie flies, like I am obsessed with shaggy dub. It's just amazing. If you're having a bad day, I wouldn't sprinkle any in my cereal, but boy, having it on the table sure makes me happy. All right, so now we've got a rabbit. Again, right in there. And if you maintain a parallel with your loop, so I mean parallel to your desk, these materials shouldn't fall out. What happens is when we start moving up and down with that loop because we're looking this way or grabbing a tool, that's when stuff moves. So a little patience, and just keep in mind if that stays level, you shouldn't have material falling out. And if you do, well, then there's something wrong with your grip tension. Again, I told you guys we're going to eliminate a bunch of excuses today of why you're not tying this fly. One is because you haven't seen it yet. So I gave you that one. But now that you've seen it, I don't know what to tell you. The fish have nowhere to go. So spin this bad boy up. Again, keep in mind those rubber legs are not part of the loop. Once I got that in, a quick little brush. I've got my Swiss CDC stainless brush here. And again, make sure you're getting into the shaggy dub. I know it seems a little counterintuitive and you're like, man, isn't that gonna break them or nick them? Nah, shredded latex. Stuff's pretty strong. All right, so there's our one big wrap behind those legs. Get that fur moving in the right direction. I don't want to crimp onto those legs. I just want to get in front of them. And now we can start pushing a little bit, make sure everything stays where it's supposed to be, and keep wrapping. So again, this is where it gets a little goofy. Sometimes that rabbit spreads out just a touch in that loop. The beauty is we're finishing it always in the same spot, and so we can manipulate that just a touch and make it work for us. So let's get this tied off. A couple wraps to secure, and then I'm going to bring that loop back over itself. A few more thread wraps. Safely trim out your loop. And if so like this is wet. That's why it looks nasty right there. But let's get a whip finish, and then we'll get our comb and bring that right back to life before we add our last shank. There's one whip finish. Let's get 2 in there. And by all means, like when you're tying these at home, you don't have to rush in between putting that head cement on like I am today. I just want to get this done in a timely manner for you guys that are watching this video. And we do appreciate you sacrificing a little bit of time to jump on here and learn something cool. So we want to make it as accommodating to you as we possibly can. All right, so that's going to have to dry a little bit, but that's perfect. So now I can get my head cement on. I don't have to worry about getting that head cement into the rabbit because we all have done that at one point, I'm sure. And it's no good. Rabbit and head cement don't mix. All right, it's just going to get a nice coat all the way around those thread wraps. And now, remember, put the cap back on. All right, so now I'm looking at these legs. And all I'm going to do is trim. I'm going to trim all of them at the same time. So all 4 come back. And then what I'm looking at is to come just in front of where the first set of legs ends. So I just want those to make a little layer, right? You get what we're going for. All right, one more shank to pop in here. So we went 11 for the tail, 12 for the next, 13 for our last shank before we get into the hook. And pop out, give a little, this is key too, shake it. Why? Because you've got all that shaggy dub and it wants to be grabby, and then you've got wet rabbit, so giving it a shake will dry that out pretty quickly, and then everything is going to start to stack and look like it should. And sometimes having that appealing look to your eye in the vise is going to make you not only more confident, it's just going to, you know, keep you happier while you tie. We're all about tying while happy. All right, thread, get rid of that tag. At this point, a 13mm shank feels huge. Oop, there we go, break the thread, it's always good. I'm on a heater lately, breaking thread on camera. Hope you guys enjoy it. It's not my favorite thing, but once you've broken thread about 6 million times, it doesn't faze you too much. So, by all means, learn from it. And this is a good time, I think, to talk about the bobbin that I'm using, which is a Stomfo Steel Tech. I'm also tying on a Stomfo Transformer vise. There we go. I'm really crank that arm down. That's where I'm getting it. So this is good. So watch my thumbnail, get in there, pinch that arm down a little bit. I'm trying to be a hero with this thread. I might have my tension set just a little snug, but no fears. All right, third time's a charm. And again, so we're gonna cheat and get that arm started. There we go. And now, try that one more time. Voila. All right, so somewhere on this shank there is a bit of a sharp edge. It happens, and we deal with it. Here's our loop. I hope you enjoy tying loops, because that's about all that goes into this here. A little thought, pre-measure, and a lot of loops. All right, there's our loop. Come back, make sure it's secured on that knot that we made. Nothing opens, nothing moves left or right. And pop in my spinner just to keep that loop out of the way for a minute. Guess what's coming? If you said legs, you're correct. So 2 more legs. And then the beauty of this design too is it's completely adaptable. So as you go up, if you get the feeling I want to change color legs, I want to change the number of legs, by all means do it. You can put legs on sides, top, bottom. You can go from 2 to 3 to 4, whatever you want to do. What makes you fish that fly better or more confidently, that's what's important. So here I'm going to leave just a touch more space, not a lot, just a touch. And the reason being, again, like I mentioned earlier, by the time we get to this 13 mil, there's almost room enough for 4 wraps. I know if we're using feathers, there's definitely room for 4 wraps. And what we're trying to do here is emulate that same spacing with substituted material. And so the point of that is, just because a fly is tied a certain way, and that's what you've always seen, great. But that doesn't mean it can't be altered or adapted because of availability of material, different species, whatever it might be. You have to be willing to change ever so slightly to continuously find success. Success is not a one-day venture. It is the aggregate of a body of work that to me at least spells success. And so tying your own flies, studying water, watching our YouTube videos, listening to Josh talk about jetty fishing, salmon fishing, sea runt cutthroats, all of that, long-term, added together, take the average, better fisher. So keep that in mind. All right, so we're spacing this out. So this is our third shank. We started at 3/4 of an inch. And as you go up, each bit of rabbit, since I'm progressively adding a millimeter of shank, is going to increase by roughly 1/16 of an inch. That's not much. And it's not an exact measure either. It's just that I know I start with 3/4 of an inch. And once I'm onto the hook, and we've got 2 loops in the hook, at the end of that rabbit piece is 1 inch. And so in 5 sections, we are gaining roughly 1/4 of an inch. And that means roughly a 1/16 per section. All right, again, let's get that, your side of the legs here, get that wrap behind. Now on my side, the legs come forward for the wrap behind. And now keep in mind, we want that shaggy staying kind of behind those as our support system or our prop. All right, now we've got that second wrap there behind the legs. And all right, I've got these two trying to creep back. There we go, roughly. This is the fun part of tying with all that shaggy dub, and then rubber legs. So anything that touches just grabs it. And so that's cautionary tale, right? All right, now we're in front of those legs again, and here we go. And this is where having a little cup of water on your dyeing desk is priceless, because now I'm getting to that point where, that's a little bit much rabbit. Well, not really. We'll just get it wet, condense it, cram it in there, tie it off. Guess what? Everything comes out just fine. All right, tie this bad boy off. Bring that thread loop back over itself one more time, like so. Find that tag end, and we'll pop it out. As you can see here, nothing crazy. Again, it's just a matter of paying attention and being consistent, patient. I don't know if anybody's keeping track. How many times have I said patient today, or patience? I'm sure it's a good number though. And second whip finish. Like that. Get that fur off of that thread. Boom. One more time, slight dip in the water with the fingertips to get that hair out of the way of the thread. Come in with your head cement. Give it a little kiss. If you're at home, this is when you let that head cement dry. Maybe go get another cup of coffee, change the channel. I don't know. You do you, but you want to give that head cement time to dry. Don't do what we're doing here. Pretend it's just a sped up version, I guess. All right, like so. And that's it for the trailing part of our fly. So now we're going to get into the hook. So before I do that, in order for me to, keep in mind what top and bottom is, I'm coming from the bottom every single time with my whip finish to grab that eye, and then I simply remove this from the vise and set it to the side. I remember every time I come up from the bottom, so I know the orientation of that portion of the fly. All right, enough of that. Into the vise we are throwing our hook now. So this is the Ahrex SA254 size 4. I feel like we're slightly off from straight there. As you see, I've got a Spawn super slotted tungsten bead in pink. So that's a 6.3 millimeter chunk of tungsten, huge, heavy. And then behind it, I've got 5 or 6 wraps of 0.025 non-lead or lead-free wire. Get some thread started here. Cut out that tag. All right. Really want to solidify those weighted wire wraps so that nothing moves on this fly, nothing spins, twists, whatever you want to call it. And then on my thread base, I'm going back to just where the flat portion of that shank ends. So now, again, my favorite way to attach that rear portion, I have got a 19 millimeter Spawn shank that I dedicated, and what that means is I cut the eye off. And so all I have is the connection arm and rear portion. So I'm going to tie this directly to the bottom of the shank, and I know it's on top right now, but this is going to sit hook point up. So this truly is the bottom of the shank, and position as much as I can before I get to this step. So remember, we talked about always coming up. So from here, this would be upside down. So I know, turn it, loop it onto that shank and ride. So now this is the bottom of that first portion that we tied, connected bottom of our hook, right? Makes sense? Great. The beauty of this is this whole rear portion is tied in the round. So unless you're adding weight to the shanks via weighted wire, it won't matter how you put it on. How about that? So again, time to tie that arm, and we're going to cheat on that first couple wraps. Ah, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I did not adjust the tension on my bobbin. I'm so sorry. Somewhere out there, I hope someone's enjoying that. I know I would. All right. Right over the top there and catch that broken part. Trim that busted part out. Trim our tag end if you want right now. Yahtzee. All right, back in action, folks. And boom, cheat a little, not a lot. There we go. And now we can pull down as we do each wrap. Should avoid breaking that thread the last time. But one thing I want to do at this juncture is go ahead and add a little super glue gel. And I do mean very little, but enough so that when I finish wrapping these thread wraps, I know that this shank is glued through to the shank of the hook. And that is what I'm looking for, that little added security. Because again, this is designed for specifically coho, and I'm not looking to catch a small one, right? We're out there trying to catch the biggest fish we can. And so you need to tie your flies as strongly as possible. All right. So at this point, I would again go get a cup of coffee. I'd let that glue dry, but here we are, insta dry, fingertips. All right. Loop. We got 2 loops coming. Nothing crazy, I don't think, unless we want to get crazy with those legs. That would be the only thing that would change. All right. So here's our first knot on that guy. And get this thread all the way to the front, out of our way. Open that loop. And this is going to be a little bit subjective, if you will, on where you put these legs. So looking at this, right, you can kind of make thirds out of this shank, even though we're doing 2 sections, make thirds, and you'll know where those legs should sit. They should sit 1/3, 2/3. I know it sounds weird. You just tied a bunch of these, and I know that's how it's supposed to go. So I've got 6 legs left on this tab, maybe 7, but let's go with the 6 concept. So we have 2 legs on each previous shank leading up to this. But again, I like the idea of a lot of movement, especially in the pause. When that fly is dropping back down, the wiggle of those legs becomes a hypnotic type movement for these fish sometimes. If not, it's just for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm the one getting hypnotized fishing these. But either way, let's add another leg. So now we're up to 3. Separate those. Then I'm going to get the 3 tied in on. Oh, jump that section there. We don't want that. 3 onto your side. Again, leaving enough space for roughly 2 wraps. And those are the initial 2 wraps of our loop. All right. So secure those legs down. Now bring that thread up one more time, pull that loop out, give yourself a little gap of work area away from those rubber legs so that when we spin, we're not going to grab those legs in that loop. Again, don't go super heavy on the shag, just a little bit. Our 4th chunk of rabbit. Stays in the loop, spread that shaggy dub just a touch, and trim out the leather. So I'm going to spread that rabbit out just a little bit. And at this point, like, there is the possibility that we get to the front of this and we still have a little room. So you may have to pull an audible and make another loop there. And that's okay. There's no rules. We're just, again, adapting and playing with what's available, namely rabbit, right? There's no shortage of rabbit right now, and it comes in a myriad colors. Like if you can't find something that makes you happy and catches fish, you're probably not looking too hard. All right, there it is spun. Brush, release, and you know, those trapped, untrapped or loose fibers like so, and let's start to wrapping. So get behind these 3 now. On your side, come to my side, watch that hook point. And get it again. And there are those 3. And like I said before, they will try to grab everything. Don't let them. You see I've got a little bit of a weak spot here in my loop as far as a material gap. Again, it's the beauty of a loop. Like all I have to do is keep doing what I'm doing, and once the entire loop has been utilized, that gap doesn't show, and so we just have a progressive body. That progressive body, if you're filling it in the loop with the proper amounts, will eventually lead to that taper that we've all grown to love. So tie off that loop, undo the tool, pull it back over, and tie down. Cut that out. Voila. So now, in theory, I'm going to have about 1 more loop to go. Let's find out and tie that last loop. There we go. Make our knot. Solidify. Voila. And pop the tool in. Keep that loop out of our way as we add our last chunk of legs. And again, we had 2 on each previous, our first 3 shanks, and then the first chunk here on our hook, we went to 3, and we're going to do 3 again for this last portion. And then we can finish trimming out those legs too. Again, you're just trimming them slightly shorter than the previous set, and you can trim those at any time. Get this on top, about so. Lock it in, and then 3 on yours, 3 on mine. So again, that wash, rinse, repeat kind of mentality, right? It can still be very effective to make it look like an outrageously difficult fly, and one that performs well, which is the important part. And this one definitely performs well. So find our loop, make sure it's not in the legs, and pop that tool back in. Now we'll make sure we have an open loop. So this is what's fun about loops, or maybe not fun all the time, is they open or spin and then close. So just be mindful when you rest a loop like I've been doing, make sure that it's open all the way to where it's tied in before you start filling it with material. And so we're going chunk of Shaggy, followed by our last chunk of rabbit, and this is a full 1-inch piece of leather attached here. And there we go. Spin her in and trim the leather out. Nothing to it. Awesome. And I just want to space out that Shaggy a little bit before we start going. There we go. And again, be mindful of those rubber legs. And today we are using Grizzly Flutter legs. And these are pink barred black. A lot of times I really like getting crazy with legs. I have so many packs of legs, it's not even funny. But I tie a lot of these, and I get bored pretty quickly, so I'm always changing stuff. So here we go. Last loop here. Your 3, I'm going to get a wrap behind, and then on my side, see how that leg wants to travel. Make sure it doesn't leave it where it's supposed to be. Be patient here. I know this is probably a bit of torture to watch. However, it's worth the time to make sure you're not trapping any of the legs inside that loop, because there's only one way to undo, and it's not very pleasant. All right, so at this point, a little cloudy here as far as where those legs are. So instead of fighting it, let's just get in front of them, and in front of them on my side, and everybody's going to play nicely, and we're going to have plenty of rabbit in our loop to completely fill in that front area. There we go. All right, look at that. And just to keep things out of our way, let's get our fingertips slightly damp there and finish this fly. 1, 2 wraps to catch the loop, tool out, thread back, finish tying off the loop, and voila, there we are. At this point, make sure you really solidify a nice thread dam, thread neck, thread head, whatever you want to call it. Make sure it's pretty. Again, this fly is going to get destroyed. So a couple good whip finishes and we'll be ready for some head cement. And on this one, yes, I will let it dry properly. Trim out that thread one last time. Again, a little shout out to the fly smith, Brian Smith, Ties Flies. Amazing scissor. Do you need one? Yep, sure do. Who has them? Spawn Fly Fish. So when you go to order your Shaggy Dub and your Rabbit and your Polliwog Tail, your Spawn Bead and your Spawn Shank, and your Spawn Articulated Shanks, and your Ahrex hook, well, at that point, why not grab another pair of scissors? Just saying. We have it all, folks. So when you're shopping, you don't need to jump around. Just you can get it all here. Or on spawnflyfish.com. Give us a call if you can't find it. We'll walk you through it. All right, and there, we're going to call that good for now. That is pink, purple, Shaggy Leggy Bunny Boi. And it should be called the Shaggy Leggy Bunny Oh Boy, because the fish you catch are going to knock your socks off. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, toss a like, toss a subscribe, and we will see you guys on the water.